The crypto expert that predicted the current crash we have seen over the last 3 weeks is weighing in on his thoughts yet again on what will come next for crypto and our altcoins. This is not a video you can afford to miss. Fefe is one of the best technical analysis with so far a very high win rate. So I think his thoughts on this market are worth listening to. In this video, we agree and we actually disagree on some things regarding altcoins and what may happen. So it's very important, again, you listen up if you value some opposing thoughts. Okay, Fefe, welcome back, my friend. Let's catch everyone up to speed on what they possibly missed last time and what's gone right and what's in progress. So you said on roughly was it the 7th, I think, that we're going to be short-term bearish.
Yeah.
Right? That's obviously come true. I think we got a lot of flack for that, but that's come true. You said that you thought there could be a rebound of the current all-time high that could be in progress. We'll talk more about this in 1 second. You said that there could be a further 50 to 70% crash in altcoins after we hit the all-time high. And finally, you agree that 2026 could be a great year with Bitcoin going between $300,000 to $500,000 because of the fundamentals, but no broad alt season, more of a selective one, which we'll also talk more about. So has anything changed in your thesis from what I've said here?
No, thank you so much for bringing me back on the channel. We had a great discussion, and yeah, back then the whole thought process was that we need to see a retrace to all-time highs. Now, I a bit changed my thesis, and I'm not sure that's coming. The only reason is because we bled so much in the past just week and a half, 2 weeks, that it's been a very impulsive sell-off, which would tell me that there is going to be a retrace, but it would be a 30% pump from here to get back to all-time highs. So I don't think that is happening before we have a little bit more downside.
Okay, so could you maybe explain a little bit further about what you think is the next, let's just call it 1 month into 2026? I know we have some bullish catalysts coming up here as well with the rate cut likely going to be happening. So maybe elaborate a little bit more on what you think that could mean for the charts.
Yes. So I can actually bring up my chart here as well and show you because I think it's very, very relevant. So if you look here, what you will see is that if you go, this is the total market cap, right? If you go into the weekly chart, this is what you're going to see. And I was in this belief that we bled through on this major level. You see this 2.96 trillion mark on the total market cap. This down here is a very, very important level because if you look at this level, this was the catalyst for this final move up on the weekly level. Now, in our last discussion, which you're probably just going to link somewhere below, we discussed why this daily break was substantial. Now we see an exact same pattern on the weekly chart. We have a market structure shift on the weekly level, and this basically tells me that we still have pain to go down. Now, that does not mean that we can't have a little bit of a retrace here. This would be absolutely fine to have a retrace to the daily order block up here at 3.44 trillion. That would put Bitcoin at around 105,000 each region. That's what I would be looking at. But then, unfortunately, we have to go to the next time frame, which is the monthly, and we need to see a completion of the monthly leg, which is down here at 2.3 trillion-ish, which is another 22% down.
So what does that mean for Bitcoin? What price are we looking at for Bitcoin, and what do you think will be the implications for altcoins?
Yeah, so it's difficult to say what's going to happen with altcoins. I think that didn't change. So my thesis about altcoins, again, I can just bring up my chart. Let's talk about altcoins first. I mean, you know, I said that the top was in Ethereum down 50% since August. BNB, which was one of the strongest one, down 43% since October. Solana down, even if I just look at September high, down 52%. So I think altcoins, I said that we're going to have about a 50 to 70% retrace on altcoins. We're almost there. That additional 20-30% is missing what I'm actually expecting to happen. So I do think that is still coming, and I do think that we are going to see at least a 20% lower prices. I'm looking at Solana at 110, 105, 110. I'm looking at BNB at around 650, 700. I'm looking at XRP, I'm not really looking at, but ETH, 2.5 thousand, around those levels. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is a little bit different. In the last show that we did, I actually said that I think the bottom for Bitcoin is around 80,000. Now, considering the substantial sell-off that's been happening, unfortunately, I had to change my outlook as well. I wished that we're going to come down a little bit in a slower manner and we build up liquidity, and that's enough for Bitcoin to hold the 80,000 level. We're currently at a 35% correction, and also you've been here for quite some time. People who've been here know that the 30% correction in any bull market is normal, by the way. So we're at a normal level, and for us to go into this, so to say, short bear market that I would be expecting going into Q1, I think Bitcoin has to come a little bit lower, and I'm looking at between 70 and 80,000. That's the level that I need to look out for. Very important. If I just look at the charts, and I don't want to upset anyone, but this is the main level. This is the main demand zone. That means that we're looking at between 50 and 70,000. This is a $20,000 range that we can just touch into and then see if we bounce from there. But I think we're definitely taking 75,000 rather sooner than later.
It's interesting for me because if you have a look at the others to Bitcoin chart, right, you'll have a look at that, and we kind of saw at the top of this roughly October period, we saw that chart actually bottomed for the others to Bitcoin chart. And we actually saw that altcoins have done quite well against at least Bitcoin. This is obviously others being the, altcoins excluding the top 10. So I wonder, what are your thoughts on that? Because Bitcoin's dominance chart as well doesn't look that strong. I mean, people are calling for, dare I say it, an alt season before we have any sort of euphoric push for Bitcoin, which personally I don't think is what we want to actually see here. I think it will be a very spotty alt season indeed. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you see that this is meaning something else? Is there sort of a plan that's unfolding besides just the total market cap possibly going down here?
We'll see. I think there's a lot of discussion about what really happened on October 10th, right? And then it wasn't an API issue. That was the delisting of the indexes or taking out the treasury companies from these indexes, and that could have triggered a sell-off on the institutional level. I think what we really see is so talking about Bitcoin, I'm going to talk about others. The reason why I look at total market cap is because I want to understand where the overall market is heading. We can see narratives, as we've seen this year, the entire year, narratives popping up. We can see RWS flying. We can see Solana flying. But you can see that these are nothing else but rotation from one segment within crypto to another. That doesn't mean that new money is coming in. And for us to see especially if we want to see an alt season, that is in definition requires new money to come in, because otherwise it's just a PvP like rotation kind of market. So I think one of the biggest catalysts that I'm looking for 2026, a lot of things that we talked about last time as well, but worth mentioning, we've got rate cuts coming because Jerome Powell is going to be retraced. That's the other one is retraced. Is that TA retraced? No, replaced. In May, there will be a dovish Fed. With the dovish Fed chair, rates are going to be cut 50%. $7 trillion sitting on money on the sideline. I think hundreds of billions are sitting, waiting for the Clarity Act to be passed. Midterm elections come in. So there's like a lot of catalyst that is coming for next year I just can't be bearish and say the 4 years out is hill. I think Bitcoin is going to do its thing. I think Bitcoin is going to go down maybe, I would say 70,000 is the bottom. But again, as we've seen in the chart, is between 50 and 70, somewhere there. I think we're going to have a retrace. Everything, the weak player is going to leave, and I think Bitcoin is going to be again crowned next year. I do see Bitcoin 200, 300,000. We'll see how everything plays out. And altcoins are going to be just penny stocks. I think you got to pick the right narrative. There will be a lot of opportunities, but it's not going to be. I think again, I'm happy to debate on the alt season, but I think there's not going to be an alt season where everything goes up all at once.
Well, let's talk about that in just 1 second. But I do want to touch on because I think we definitely don't see eye to eye there. But it's always good to just, I think, like the premise of the last interview, a lot of people didn't quite like the thought of, Bitcoin falling lower, altcoins falling lower, and so on. But the truth is separate. You know what I mean? Like sometimes it's not what you want to hear; it's what you need to hear. And so I'd love to bounce ideas around. But one final thing I wanted to ask you before moving on was rate cuts, right? So is that not going to impact? Obviously QT ending. This isn't going to impact the charts, because you said last interview that basically the charts kind of tell the story before the narrative, right? So could maybe the charts this time around not be pricing in a rate cut, not be pricing in QT ending? Maybe has this been a systemic problem from the 10th to the 10th, and from here we could actually see a bounce? Or are you pretty well certain that we will go down to that 50K level?
No, so the 50K I think is the absolute bottom. I would be surprised if we get to 50,000 on Bitcoin, just because of the insane institutional buying, government pressure, all that stuff. It can happen based on the charts, but I don't think that is what is going to happen. Going back to whether I wanted to reflect on as well as people need to hear, some things that it's not just what they want to hear, but what they really need to hear. When I made this statement, I said the bull market is over, and I got so many hateful comments. But like seriously, you are crazy, you're an idiot, this is never happening, and the same people holding the bags are down 50% in the past month. The problem is, it's not necessarily, and I'm going to talk about the rate cuts in a second as well, but the markets and the charts never lie. It's not about what you think, what you want to see. The market doesn't owe you anything. If you think you didn't make enough money, well, the market doesn't care, right? It doesn't care. And going back to whether the market or the charts are pricing in QT, and in QT, I don't know when this is going out, but QT is ending next week, Monday, which is the 1st of December. That's announced, it's sealed. So people also confuse that with, unlimited money printing is starting on Monday. And that's not what's happening. What's happening is that going from a 4-year period of quantitative tightening, a tightening monetary policy, we're going into something that's called a neutrality, in quantitative neutrality, where there's no money printing, there's no tightening, there is no expanding. It's just a period where they examine what is actually happening. So the market is pricing in this, and rate cuts are actually not bullish. Like we know it is, because long-term liquidity comes, the market pick up, but it takes 8 to 12 months for anything like that to play out. And the markets front-run this. And I do believe the reason why we see this crash now, and I do believe we're going to see a 10-15% correction in the S&P and the NASDAQ and the stock market as well, is because the market is preparing for that opportunity to come next year. And when the retail thinks that everything is over, that's when these guys load up. That's when the 7 trillion rotates, and that's when the actual starts into an expanding economy with regulatory clarity coming in with the Clarity Act.
Yeah, I definitely understand. I agree as well. Things take time. Things that don't just switch straight away. You have to have the actual thought process of the institutions and retail and everyone in between, sort of going up the risk curve, being more risk on, and actually moving that liquidity once the time is right, once the setting fits. So let's maybe talk more about the alt season, I guess. Okay, so a lot of people here on my channel, they have, including myself, been waiting for an alt season. Alt season. We've been talking about it and thinking about it for quite some time. Now, you think that alt season will be a little bit more spotty, where we kind of see a select narrative pump, maybe within that narrative itself, 1 to 5 coins, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of pump, but then money kind of dissipates. So could you maybe elaborate why do you think that'll be the case this time around?
It's actually super interesting. I made the video actually 3 months ago. I just looked back. I made this video 3 months ago. It says that the alt season you're waiting for is a lie. The reason why I made that video is because people have an understanding of alt season. I've been here since 2016, right? So 2017, there were 2,000 tokens. 2,000, that's it. That's what we had. 2,000 tokens. We had Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ripple, Litecoin, and then we had 2,000 other coins that you could just buy and hope for the best. The thing is, when you have 2,000 tokens and it's a $1 trillion industry, you can literally just close your eye, buy anything, and it goes up tomorrow. Like, it was an easy run. Then we had 2021, where there were much more tokens, but still insane amount of capital flowing in. So we could see something similar, that you could just close your eye and everything went up. The difference now is multiple fold. One is the ripple effect, the waterfall effect of people investing in Bitcoin in a crypto exchange, because they can do it through an ETF, they can do it through their mutual fund or whatever. They invest in a crypto exchange, they make some money, and they try their luck. With what? With the newest innovation out there, with XRP, with Solana, with this and that. They make some money there as well, and they go, you know what, I might just buy some of this bread, or might just buy some of this smoking chicken fish, because it might go to the moon. You know what I mean? And then they buy these little coins, and that's basically the trigger for alt season. That's not happening. Institutional money and serious money is locked into ETFs, in Bitcoin, in Ethereum, and potentially all the other coins that are coming. And that money, like, if anybody thinks that they're going to, like, investors investing in the Bitcoin through an ETF, going to take their money out of the ETF, even if they make money, and upload it to a crypto exchange just to buy smoking chicken fish, you're ludicrous. Like, that's just simply not happening. So the reason why I say that there is going to be a selective alt season, in my opinion, where you can see AI popping up, and there will be David Sachs will come up, arrange his tie and will tell us that the decentralized AI is the future. And you will see all the AI tokens pull a 400% in a week, because that's just what it is. And then you're going to see BlackRock come in and say, we are revolutionizing real world assets on the blockchain. And then you will see Ondo and all these real world asset layer ones, layer twos flying. But these are different narratives that are playing out. I don't think we're going to see a narrative ever again, or a time ever again, where everything all at once runs in a short period of time to extreme highs. I don't think that's happening.
So your main case, just so I understand it, is that we're not going to see a broad alt season because there are too many coins, essentially, not enough money to go around. That's the main two.
Yeah, it's not just the too many coins, it's just there is no interest and the money is not at the right places. When you're in the market, when you are on a crypto exchange, it's easy to click a button. It's easy to go from Bitcoin to smoking chicken fish or whatever, It's easy. But when you invest, and majority of the money currently is invested through ETFs, and we underestimate how this is the most successful ETF ever, the Bitcoin ETF. You know what I mean? So if you look at all the money flowing into crypto, meaning Bitcoin, it's flowing through the ETFs. It's just not going to come to a crypto exchange. We need to have another catalyst. For example, Trump coin and Melania coin could have been a catalyst. MoonPay got 400,000 signups in 3 days. There could have been the catalyst, but it's not, because it got rugged. It went to 80 billion and then all the way down. So we need to find a catalyst. Maybe it comes a year from now, 2 years from now, that actually brings substantial amount of money into crypto, not through an ETF, but into a crypto exchange where people can actually transact to different tokens. That's what I believe in.
So my response to that would be the fact that I think ETFs haven't necessarily negatively impacted the community. I mean, you can definitely see on the Bitcoin new addresses chart, you can see a drop off literally from January 2024, where these spot ETFs were introduced. You can literally see, like, I'm guessing, new addresses kind of flock to the ETFs. And so I definitely think like that is a case. But I think net overall, the ETFs are just kind of, in my opinion, validifying the industry, and therefore obviously Bitcoin, ETH, and the alts to soon come. It's going to attract money that's going to move within them. But I do think it's going to attract more money than would have otherwise been interested in the industry. Kind of come through the traditional means, which is through the exchanges and through when liquidity is in expansion. We have that money available. I think it's going to attract more interest than it would without the ETFs, because the ETFs have, as I said, validified crypto. So that's like one of my biggest cases. The other side of the situation as well, when it comes to the amount of coins, like back in 2018, for example, there was $2,000 trillion and so on. I think money generally centralizes to the top coins anyway, right? So I've found with my own research and my own cheats that most of the money anyway is like within the top 500. And if you're wanting to really be picky, I think like 95% of all the liquidity centralizes the top 200. So with that research, for me, it's never mattered about how many coins have been in crypto or how many pump fund tokens are created or whatever. Most people coming into crypto, first of all, aggregate to the centralized exchanges. From there, then they kind of move into any of the coins from there. Maybe they go to some DEXs, they'll watch some, influencer talk about some macro cap shit coin, but that's where most of the money is. So I've never seen personally, that being a massive problem. Not to mention as well, we've seen like kind of the super highways being connected. Like you mentioned, I mean, there hasn't been much in terms of the broader alt season, but I know Chainlink's worked with MasterCard on some, ways in which MasterCard users instantly mint tokens on the blockchain, like USDT, and instantly buy altcoins. So I guess my overall case, what I'm trying to really say here, is that I do think we will see a broad alt season again, but only when liquidity expands, only when we actually see that. And I guess small glimpses of what I'm talking about here are the tiny blips we had above the midpoint in the business cycle, early 24 and late 24. So do you have any opposing thoughts to that, or what are your thoughts?
So multiple fold. One is, I think we need to define, probably we don't have time for that, but I think everybody needs to define for themselves, what is alt season? Me being here in 2017, 2021, for me, alt season is, I put $1,000 into something, tomorrow I wake up, it's 1,300, and I don't even know what the token is, what the token does, I don't know anything about it. That's for me, alt season. You mentioned Chainlink. If you look at this is the Chainlink chart from 2021. So from 2021, Chainlink is down 66%, even though since 2023, it went up 400%. My point being is that there is so many innovation, and there is, you're right. Link as well, a very good example. And the chart looks like this. It's going to be very difficult, in my opinion, to persuade anyone to put any serious money into something that has so much innovation and underperformed so badly in the past years. It's just going to be very difficult. And it's not a little amount of money that we need. It's a shit ton of money that we need. So for us to see an alt season, we need to see insane amount. Like, don't forget, like if you look at the total market cap, let me just pull the total market cap here. We go to the weekly chart, and I go back here, and if I look at 2020, let's say the 2020 alt season, right? Or 2020 bull market. So we were sitting here at around beginning of September, 300 billion market cap, right? So that means that every week, the market cap went up by 10, 15% at least. That's $30 billion. If you look at it now, if the market cap wants to go up by 10% every week, we're looking at $300 billion. So if you look at this, that's just a substantial, the difference is 10x to what needed to move the market back then and what the market needs now to be moved. And that's just going to be smaller and smaller, because if we're going to be at 6 trillion, a 10% move is $600 billion. Doing that every single week, where does that money come from? So that's why I just simply don't, mathematically, I just don't see how an alt season will be able to happen.
One of my thoughts on that is, and you're a man of TA, I know, obviously, so you know this as well, like the order book size on these altcoins, right? The plus and 2% depth. I mean, it takes far less liquidity than the market cap makes it out to be to actually move these coins up. Like, so, you know, we saw ICP go from $2.80 to $10 in a couple of weeks, and the market cap it gained was like $6 billion. But there wasn't actually $6 billion because of how thin the order books are, and maybe the 10 to the 10 liquidations market makers being hit that maybe possibly has made things even thinner. But I think market cap in a total essence is kind of just like mostly fake anyway, right? So like a 30 billion, gain like you showed before in the last cycle, moving up 15%, like, or this time around, we don't actually need that much capital to move up, right? So I believe anyway, it's deceiving looking at market cap in terms of raw value invested in the ecosystem. So I guess the way that I understand it is that, you know, this industry and altcoins individually can move very quickly without much liquidity. And so when that comes in, then it can be quite explosive. But I do actually agree with what you said before. I think right now it's PvP. I think right now it's, and especially because of the wrap we've got so far and the poor performance, it may actually impact some of the potential liquidity that could flow here. That people are just burnt and tired, and people are seeing that on the outside looking in.
Would you say though that so if and I partially agree with you on the price movement, but would you say though that that's basically the definition of a bubble that is going to pop anyway? Like if I agree with you that you can move charts very quickly, especially with great market makers, whatever, but that's that's not sustainable. So like that will eventually result in a massive, massive, massive crash anyway. So if we go up that way, it doesn't even matter. Maybe we can get out and, someone comes and buys our bags. But also, like you said, ICP, I mean, if you look at ICP, this is how successful that was. You know what I mean? So like, I understand what you're saying, but then I'm even more concerned if that is happening, because if that is happening, that means that our industry is completely screwed, because people will come in, they will buy the top. Some people, some market makers, some insiders, some investors, some VCs will cash out and raise everyone again, and we're back at square one.
No, I agree. I am expecting a large crash. I don't think anyone who says altcoins won't suffer in the months to come after the bull market, right? Like, I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. I think once liquidity dries up, people will leave the asset. I mean, people are already annoyed. I think we're on borrowed time anyway. And so, yeah, no, definitely, I agree. There's going to be a massive bubble pop. And you saw from ICP. So, by the way, I think a majority of that definitely comes from market sentiment. But, I warned people of that. I said, look, ICP, this move isn't sustainable because all altcoins are dictated by Bitcoin. And so if Bitcoin falls, which I think it will, from maybe the 300 to 500K levels, like you say, which I think is definitely possible, they're going to feel it. You're better out than in, that's for sure.
Yeah, but I also want to say, to join your camp a little bit, I also say that I have been buying the dip recently, like I have, because this is the moment to do so. If you have conviction, and this is what I always say, like no matter what you do, you know why I also respect, I don't agree with a lot of things Alex Becker does, a lot of things. But I respect him because he's going down with the ship, you know? He's like, he does what he says he's going to do. And I like that. So for me, I'm the same. If you have conviction in something, bro, you're not going to get a better opportunity. Maybe you're going to get it 20% cheaper, 50% cheaper, but who cares? If the prophecy is right, next year it's a 10x, or 5 years from now it's a 20x. So I do agree that if you believe that 2026 is bullish, and if you believe that you have a project that you want to be invested in because it's great, this is the time to do it. Genuinely, this is the time, and it scares you. You have to buy when there's blood on the streets. You know the famous saying. And there is blood on the streets now. So yeah.
So that's a good point, Fefe. It's hard to. You don't want to. It's like an involuntary tick. It's like the last thing you want to do is click that buy button. But that I know that is, like you said, the best time to do it. So I'll leave you on one more question here, brother. What altcoins are you buying right now?
I'm not really. I mean, altcoins, yes. So I have. I don't want to time the bottom. I deployed. So I sold majority of my. I sold basically all my spot bags except Bitcoin on October 17th. I sold 50% of my Solana, 50% of my ETH. I didn't sell any Bitcoin, and I sold everything else. And I deployed 5% of that cash back the other day. The way I'm doing it, I use a bot and I just simply accumulate. In these ranges. We can go down 20% more, but I don't care. My range is between 90,000 and 50,000. So in that range, the bot is just simply going to accumulate as is. You can do dollar cost averaging, DCA or whatever. So I'm bullish on Solana. I think it's a no-brainer because I think Solana has always been the innovation, the bed of innovation, not always been, but recently as the past years being the bed of innovation for crypto. I think it's here to stay. I'm accumulating some Tau because I think the AI narrative is going to be massive in the US, and Tau is one of the strongest performers. Also, if you look at the chart itself, it's relatively very strong. I'm accumulating hype because I think the perp DEX narrative is not going to die, and I think even though I don't really like the first of it all because the first usually doesn't become the best, but I think hype is doing an incredible job. They are making millions of dollars in revenue still in this market conditions. It's like a proper exchange, which I think it's a great bet. I'm accumulating Esther because I believe in what CZ is going to do. I spent thousands and thousands and thousands of BNB when it was only $1.50 on fees in 2018. So I have a little bit of a PTSD from there. So I'm not fading CZ again. I'm accumulating Esther, and then of course Bitcoin, and I buy some Ethereum for the lols. But I have some Ethereum as well. I don't have high hopes for Ethereum, but I have a little bit of Ethereum as well.
No AI real asset altcoins. You're not diving into the narratives just yet.
Not really. AI, I do Tau. So BitTensor, I do accumulate Tau, but that's it. And from the other narratives, I do perp DEX with Esther and Hype, but not really. I think also I got like, if I was to really start looking for, I just don't believe that it will happen in this way, but I would be looking at RWAs. I think they're going to be massive plays next year. I don't think memes are potentially going to come back, but it's just so difficult to pick the right meme. If I was to buy a meme, probably I would buy Brett or Pengu, because Pengu has the IP and Brett because of Coinbase and the base chain. But I'm not really comfortable buying here. The fact, and also maybe it's just a last thought for the audience as well. I always say, I wrote up a whole post. Maybe you will put it up. I said in 2022 I lost $1.7 million because when I woke up in the morning it was not 1.7 but 1.5, and I was like, okay, well it's a pullback. And then 2 days later it was 1.3, and then I don't know, 2 weeks later it was 1, and I was like, I'm not cashing out now. I'm down 50%. But $1 million is life-changing money for a lot of people, and it was life-changing money for me back then. And I didn't cash out because I was down 50%. The same scenario we have here. Well, I can tell you what, in the following 6 months, I didn't only zero myself, but I got into $250,000 in debt and being sued. So the fact that you are down 50% doesn't mean that your coins can't go down another 99% from here. So it's just keep that in mind. Invest in the right narratives. Make sure that you invest in something that you truly fundamentally understand. It's not just my friend told me to buy this new stuff and then I think you should be fine, and think long term.
Not what you want to hear, what you need to hear, right? So Fefe, thank you again for coming on, brother. I know I and everyone else listening appreciate your insights as always. Let's see how this all plays out. Obviously, you're a trader, you do TA, things move on the fly. Where they can follow you for more frequent updates, I'll leave the links all down below. Do you have any closing thoughts, brother, or is that about it?
No, yeah, I appreciate you so much. I think it's an amazing discussion. Thanks for bringing me on. Always super happy to chat to you and share minds, and much love to you and your community.
Likewise, bro. Thanks.
Thank
See you
you.
next time.
Ciao, ciao.